Hi, this is Alexa with Kiss the Chef magazine, and I'm here with a very special guest, Doll Apartments.
Hi.
Could you introduce yourself?
Hey, my name's Kiki Gazit. I'm the lead singer and frontman and the rhythm guitar player of a little DMV Maryland band called Doll Apartments. We make sort of like indie grunge, sort of Midwest emo music. And we are about to release our new EP. It's called Operation Mayonnaise. Comes out December 10th. So be on the lookout.
Okay, so, um, what I usually find crazy is that I usually come to people and ask them for an interview, but this time you actually DM'd me, and I'm sure, obviously you didn't know that I ran this, and so honestly, it's just such a coincidence that you managed to go to my account to promote your single for your EP, 6/8 Drinking Alone.
Yes.
And when I listened to it, I'm like, holy shit, this is really good. Cause
Thank you.
on it, cause here in Yakima, which is where I'm from, it's mostly hardcore. You only see hardcore, screamo, emo.
Yeah.
So we never really get any of the punky emo, Midwest emo vibes
The,
here.
the twinkle, if you will.
Yeah. And I love discovering new artists, especially ones that aren't from around here, because I do like local bands here. I always go support them whenever I can, but it's always like I feel so lucky when I find bands that aren't from here. For my past couple interviews, I think the furthest band where they're from was in Texas. And so now you're the winner. You're absolutely the furthest person away from here.
It's the first time Maryland has ever represented, really, is being the
Yeah,
first.
honestly.
Yeah, opposite coast. Yeah. For the viewers at home, we actually had to arrange. It's 9 in the morning for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 9 in the morning.
That's insane. Yeah, I totally forgot that there was a time difference with like California. But yeah, 3 hours is insane. I always forget how big the US is. Yeah, Maryland represent. Woo, that's exciting.
Um, okay. When did this band originally form, and did you come up with the name Doll Apartments?
So it was in 2021. I actually did not come up with it. It was our guitar player at the time. His name was Charlie. And the reason he picked doll apartments was because he really liked juxtapositions. Um,
Mm,
doll houses, doll apartments. But eventually, we had the story of you ever seen the Great Gatsby?
yeah.
So, it's kind of doll apartments is kind of about how the American dream is unattainable, right? And or not easily attainable. So everybody comes to the United States and they want to live in these big houses and these nice doll houses, right? And it's so unattainable that we end up living in doll apartments. And so that's kind of where we got the name from.
Mm. Um,
It's not a whorehouse. I know everyone thinks it is.
oh, seriously?
Yeah, because doll
Oh my
apartments,
God.
also, I think it's like a similar, a
Yeah.
lot deeper than
Oh,
that. Okay, but hey, you know what?
yeah. Yeah.
Feel free to think what you think. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So when did you and your bandmates start playing instruments? I mean, you might not know exactly when. And for you, since you're here, and what are your biggest inspirations when starting this band?
Oof. Uh, so I started playing guitar in about the second grade. So it's been 11 years since I, started taking lessons. And then I've been eventually I picked up all the other instruments too. It was kind of like, oh, I want to try piano. And once you know one of them, you kind of know all of them, right? Music is just like that. I think Asher's been playing, our lead guitar player. He's been playing for about 3 years, maybe 4 years now. Andrew, our drummer, has been playing for close to 5 years. And then Liz, our bass player, she's the newest at our instrument. She's been playing for maybe a year and a half. Um,
Mm.
she's very fresh into it, and it's fun to kind of teach her the stuff. And as far as inspiration, so when we started, we all have very different influences. I would say when we started, we were going for sort of a blend between a band called the Backseat Lovers. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard of them, and a lot of people have, and a little bit of like post, I would say post hardcore kind of emo, just general emo. I mean, there's I grew up on My Chemical Romance. I grew up on. mm, More recently, when we've gone into the Midwest emo direction, it's been Modern Baseball, Marietta, a little bit of Hot Mulligan, and so now we're kind of trying to sort of fit into that niche. There's Harrison Gordon too. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's really, really good. Check out his last album. Um, and my vision for the band is that if you're trying to be another Backseat Lovers band, it's a lot harder because the Backseat Lovers are kind of like lightning in a bottle, right? Like they were so, I mean, they're one of the only kind of indie bands I've seen recently that have such an undying fan base and 4 million monthly listeners constantly, right? And so I think for us at least, it's a lot easier to fit into the Midwest emo niche, which is smaller, but those fans are like really dedicated. Do you know what I mean? And I think if we can tread the line between um, really Midwest emo music and not necessarily pop, but like indie pop, more catchy hooks and stuff, kind of like what Hot Mulligan's been doing,
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the formula for success.
Mm. All right. And could you tell me about the scene over there where you're at?
Yeah, the scene was non-existent 20 years ago. We the only notable bands from Maryland or artists in the last 20 years are a band called OAR. You might have heard of them. They have a song called Shattered that was really popular back in the day. I'm talking about like
Oh,
2005. OAR was big. They're from here. There's a band called Good Charlotte, right? Okay,
yeah.
they're from Baltimore. There's a band called All Time Low.
Oh, yeah.
They're from Baltimore. Um, but Logic is from Gaithersburg, which is really which is just a fun fact I like to share about Maryland. Um, so those are the only like notable Maryland ones that I can really think of off the top of my head. So the scene wasn't you had people in Baltimore, but where I live in Montgomery County, near Rockville, there was nothing. And then a couple years ago, these two venues started sprouting up. There's this one place called the Garage. It's kind of a DIY thing. It's on a horse farm, but it's been getting really, really big recently for bands on the East Coast. And then there's another place called Heist Mice, which is just a house venue in Rockville. But what's cool about the scene is that we have one of the biggest, I think it's the biggest recording studio on the East Coast. It's called Omega Studios, and it's like 10 minutes from my house. I mean, I love that place. And all the big bands, big names have recorded there. Radiohead was there, Jimi Hendrix was there, Prince was there, so like
Mm.
Omega is really
Yeah.
a staple.
That's
But if you live in sort of anything, if you're closer to DC, District of Columbia, I know you know where DC is.
yeah.
If you're closer to DC, which we are, then you're more likely to play in the DC venues, like the Pocket, the Black Cat, Pie Shop, 930, the Anthem if you're really big. So DC has a lot of great venues, and DC has always had a lovely music scene. Rockville and Montgomery County, not so much. But what's really cool, and you'll hear this on the next EP, is we partnered with my buddy MJ, who's from a band called Co-Star, that we actually met, kind of through doing shows at the Garage and stuff. And he's featured on a song that we recorded at Omega Studios. So, you know, uh,
Wow.
it's not a big scene, but it's very tight knit. So
Okay. Now that you mentioned Operation Mayo, let's talk about it. Okay, so is there any like type of backstory on the EP?
there is. So the EP was originally supposed to be a split with us and another band called Spitball, who live in Baltimore now. And we were just kind of, we have a very similar sound. And then a couple months before we were supposed to, no, a couple weeks before we started recording the EP, their basement with all their recording equipment got flooded. So they had to drop out. And we were
Um,
like, okay, well, we have two songs because we were going to do two and two. Now we got to, we can't just drop a 2-song EP. I mean, I know bands
yeah.
do, but that's a demo. That's not an EP. So we went into the studio, we recorded two other songs, and now we have a 4-song EP. And then when we had all the tracks sort of combined, I was at my manager's house and we were eating like fast food, like McDonald's or something. And he was like, dude, what do you want to call the EP? And I was putting mayo on my fries because I love mayo. And I was like, dude, let's just call it mayonnaise. Who cares? Like I love mayonnaise. I put mayonnaise on everything. Mayo is great. I know for a lot of people that's gross. But no, I love mayo. And so I was like, let's just name it what we want, And so we threw around the idea of mayo, mayonnaise, Project Mayonnaise, and then we settled on Operation Mayonnaise, like a CIA kind of
Yeah.
operation. And in that, I don't know if you've seen the album cover, I assume, right?
Yeah, I was actually gonna ask about that.
That's him. That's my manager. We covered we covered him in shaving cream. I know it looks like
Oh,
mayonnaise.
okay. Okay. Yeah, I was
So,
wondering about that.
yeah, for that we were sort of thinking, how we would promote the EP, and a big thing was for us was an idea we had for shock value. If you see a guy covered in shaving cream with the words Operation Mayonnaise, you're like, what
Yeah.
is this? I have to check this out. And then you do, and then and then we get more streams. So it's all for the best. But yeah, that was the idea, was to create a Mayo man.
Oh, I see. And what would you say is like the overall like feeling or like essence of Operation Mayo?
Ooh. Um, to have fun.
Yeah.
The overarching message is tough because Operation Mayo for us is an operation to propel us into the big leagues. It's like it's a CIA operation, right? That's where operation comes into play. Is like, this is our operation, this is our plan, so we had another album that we really really love, but we didn't really have a plan for it to roll it out or promote it or do interviews or anything really. So we were like, all right, let's let's think this next one through. And so now we're trying our hardest. Yeah.
And um honestly, so by promoting it, so you're like also like sending it to people like how you did with me, right? So how would you say that's going so far?
Pretty well, surprisingly well. There's a lot of people who don't have their DMs like open to anyone. So it really is like 1 in every 10 people will maybe, listen to it and reply to you. I got the idea for doing that, for just DMing randoms, from I work at Guitar Center, and my general manager is this guy named JC. He was in a band called the Relapse Symphony that was in Warped Tour 2014. Like they hit it big.
Mhm.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I mean, and he's like my boss now. It's like awesome. So shout out JC, super cool guy. And I just asked him, I was like, dude, how did you do it? Like legitimately, how did you get so big that you were signed to a record label, playing Warped Tour, selling out shows in the area? And he said, well, this is what we did. This worked for us really well in 2013. Okay. Um, we went to Facebook before we'd even released a song, right? We just, did a photo shoot, did our brand image, and then we went to bands that were really similar sound to us and already had a following, right? And then we went through and messaged all of their followers and said, hey, we're a band that makes similar music. Here you go, check it out. We'll drop a song when we get to 300 likes. And he told me, is like, within a month we had 300 followers on Facebook without even releasing music. We drop the song and like everybody shows it to their friends, it goes insane. And I think what he said, the reason this works is because most fans and most people who follow these big bands, like, I'm talking the ones that I messaged were like Hot Mulligan and Modern Baseball and Marietta and Mom Jeans and Thoughts on Bowling and other just like vague like Midwest emo accounts that had a lot of
Yeah.
followers. The reason that works is because you can't talk to Hot Mulligan. They're too big. You'll send them a million DMs, they'll never reply to you, right? But this is a person you can legitimately speak to and say, "Hey, this is what I liked about your song, and when are you coming to my city? And I want to see a show that's a DIY show, a very intimate show." So I think that's why it works. And recently, I mean, we just hit 800 followers on Instagram, which doesn't sound like a lot to most people, but we started with nothing. So
Yeah.
I'm happy. I'm happy.
And what would you say is like what has been the hardest part about being in this band?
Uh, you know, getting all the cats together. It's we all have our own lives and our own schedule, and thank God for technology because there's some songs on this EP. Most bands back in the day, they all have to pick a time and a date, get in the studio together, sit down, record, mix and master. Nowadays it's like for some of the songs, actually on Endorphins, the second track on the EP, it was yeah, we went to a studio and we kind of we tracked drums mainly, and so you can just go into a studio and just track the drums for the song. And then I took those files and I went to my buddy Chris, who he's like our producer, kind of, he does everything. And I just sat down with the drums, and then at his house I recorded the guitar. And then I had to bring out our lead guitar player on a different day to record his guitar parts. And so it's like we're all making our own contributions separately, but at the end it all comes together in kind of a beautiful way. So the hardest part of being in a band, and any guy who's in a band will tell you this, the hardest part of being in a band is scheduling, because everybody has their own lives and you have to like pick times to be together. So
Yeah.
yeah, that
Hmm.
was tough.
All right. And what is music to you? How has it shaped who you are as a person right now?
Wow, that's deep. Music to me is an outlet more than anything. It's an escape in a way. I mean, my parents got divorced when I was very little, and I was always kind of dealing with the sort of backlash of that and the aftermath and the other consequences and stuff. And so, it's like if I growing up, my mom had to work like three jobs really to make ends meet. And I'm not trying to give you a sob story, but it really was like, dang, well, at least I can't really talk to mom because she's busy, and I can't talk to dad because he's working, but at least I can play guitar and I can write songs and do the stuff that I enjoy. You know what I mean? Like growing up, I didn't really have like video game consoles just because we couldn't afford it, but we could afford a guitar. So I mean, it just kind of it made sense at the time. So that's what music is for me, is really an escape more than anything. And what was your other question? I totally forgot. How has it shaped
Oh,
me?
yeah. How has it shaped who you are now?
It's such a huge part of my life. I love music, and more than just the music, like being able to do music and being a part of the scene in the DMV is kind of everything, because I made so many like what I genuinely consider like lifelong friends just from playing in bands and doing shows and going out. And um it's fun. I mean, it's music to me gives my life purpose, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
One of my favorite musicians is Tyler Joseph of 21 Pilots. He always said, no matter what job I'd be doing, I'd always be a songwriter. I could be in construction, I'd still write songs, and that would give my life purpose. So I share that sentiment.
All right. And I'm gonna get into your guys' like discography. All
Okay.
right. Okay, so I could tell in your earlier music, you guys didn't really like stick to like a specific sound, specific genre.
Yeah.
And I personally, that's what I liked about it because like every other song is like completely like different feeling,
Mhm.
like and and I can tell that it took, you know, inspiration from like kind of like indie punk sounds.
Oh yeah.
Um, but is there anything you'd like to say about like your earlier stuff?
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that each song on that album is like different. That is 1,000% what we were going for. And you you're like the fourth person to tell me that you actually like that. I remember growing up, I was a kid. I was really into like Maroon 5, and I like their stuff, but a big issue they have on their albums is like it all just kind of sounds the same. And even nowadays, when I go back and listen to like the Beatles or Grateful Dead, sure, those songs are great, but it's just more of the same each track. So I strive to do something a little different, still, kind of fitting into a genre, right? Like you could still call it alternative rock or whatever. And again, that's something 21 Pilots does really, really well, is every song on every album is completely different. Um, not maybe not completely, but they all have different sounds and styles and stuff. So, um, you know, that was something that I definitely kind of strived for musically, was to get an interesting sound. And then the first album has sort of this interesting underlying story of, like boy meets Subaru girl, they converse, they fall in love. Comfort is like about them dating, right? He's like addicted to her. Um, Intermission doesn't have anything to do with anything. It's just there for fun. That song actually might. We had the album finished, and my drummer was like, "Guys, there's not a song where I just I don't get to play the drums." And so I wrote Intermission just as like a fine, here you go. But I think it works, and yeah. So then um, I think Throne is kind of breaking up. Don't think about it is, you're upset about the breakup, but don't think about it, right? I miss her all wait is, I miss her all wait is funny because we were all at McDonald's and I had written the song and I didn't have a title for it. And we were talking about like how McDonald's puts Mick in front of everything, McChicken, McWrap, whatever. And he was like, dude, what about I Mick miss her? And I was like, how about I Mick fucking miss her? And then we were just like, all right. But when it came down to it, we were like, let's take out the McDonald's.
Yeah.
Uh, so it was just I miss her parentheses I'll wait. Again, we just kind of threw around, brainstorm titles until we came up with one. And then Hazel, I don't know if you listened to the full album, but
I did.
you did? Oh, did you like it?
Yeah, I really liked it. I really liked Subaru Girl. I really like Curtain Call, Throne, and then Comfort. Those have to be like my favorites off of the album.
Wow. Okay. Top four. I will take that. Nice. Those are good songs. Yeah. Hazel for me was a deep one. I wrote that I was like 15. So that one's about the ending of the album is the girl that the girl that he loves kills herself. I mean, she commits suicide. She passes away. And then Curtain Call was dealing with the grief of that and, just reliving everything. So it's yeah, that album, I mean, listening to it with that story in mind, it kind of cuts a little bit deeper, I think. But yeah, Curtain Call is my favorite on that album. I mean, that ending was just, I remember I brought it to the guys and I showed them that ending and they were like, holy, this is sweet. I like this. So yeah.
All right. What do you think makes your band unique compared to others in your area?
The way that we blend genres, which is, I know, something we already touched on, but a lot of the bands in our area love them all, but they just kind of stick to the same thing, right? Like I love the guys from Spitball, but sometimes I listen to that album and it's like, okay, every song on here is Midwest emo, right? Or I listen to Eyes to End, and their EP, and every song on there is, heavy metal and deathcore. Or I listen to Co-Star, who's like literally featured on our EP, love MJ. But every song on that, and this isn't a dig at them. I'm just saying every song on that album was pop punk, right? And it's just another song track finishes, another pop punk track, right? What I tried to do for Operation Mayo was have one song of each variety. So you'll hear it December 10th but Drinking Alone is like the most kind of upbeat, kind of poppy, really out there. Endorphins is sort of like a pop punk song that's slowed down a little bit, because MJ's on there and he's a pop punk guy, right? So we have this like Midwest emo hype track, and then we have this pop punk track, and then I-270 is like a totally like it's not melancholy, but it's like an indie rock track. I went for like a Citizen kind of vibe, if you know them. They're really good. Um, but so they did that, and then on the scene it's just an acoustic track. I mean, so they're all alternative rock, but they all have their own kind of niche that they fall under. And I tried to not repeat genres more than twice.
And by the end of the year, what is something that you hope to accomplish?
1,000 on everything. I want 1,000 streams on Drinking Alone. I want 1,000 followers on Instagram. I want 1,000 YouTube subscribers, which is our our lowest stat. I'm trying to bring that up.
Oh,
Yeah, I want 1,000 on everything, and we're planning a tour in February. So I want to get that tour booked and underway, and then I can have a good new year.
okay. And this is my last kind of question. And honestly, I'm really excited for Operation Mayo to come out.
Okay, great.
I'm excited to listen to the songs, and I'm just like ready. Like I just want December 10th to come right now. But other than Operation Mayo, is there anything you'd like to promote or say or shout out?
Yeah. Shout out our first album, background music for a party you weren't invited to. Shout out if anyone's watching this from the East Coast, we're gonna have two shows on tour in February. One is Philadelphia, traveling up the coast, and then that's gonna be February 6th, and then February 7th is going to be New Brunswick, New Jersey. So if you're around February 6th or 7th, come out.
Thanks so much. It was so nice talking to you.
It was great.
Hopefully you guys come by the West Coast
Yes,
and I can do like a in-person interview again.
we want that.
Yeah, that'd be so awesome. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.